She waits, just off the boulevard, child in hand, mother and child. Mother. She waits here, she's waited for 369 years, waiting for him, for father, who would leave for months at a time, sometimes for good, abandoning his family for a promissory note, a hope, a treasure that only those men worthy could race after in their ships. And each time he left us behind to wait for him. For what? For what could drive a man from his family? A pillar from its foundation, one propped up by his own will and left to collapse each season. I have to return to this. I must figure out my father's negligence to somehow justify him, and in some way come to justify myself. Gloucester, a town built on nostalgia, a fiction. Legends of homecoming and wealth ripped from the fruitful lap of our true mother, the ocean, and her ever-preservative salt. Tales of prosperity underscored by worry, but justified by those homecomings, the return of father. These tales of reconstruction, accented and branded upon our young minds of fat mothers, with blushed cheeks releasing the anxiety from the friction between love and longing. We are all here, in a city built upon the tales of our foundations and family. This must be a fiction, for I never once did see a content look upon our faces when our fatherly pillar returned, not like those in old footage. I must move on. I must travel. Through the waters of my nostalgic fantasies and their mingling with the actual, the real, the intersubjective truth of our lives here. A tension between the fantasy of ourselves as wealthy with our true mother's gifts and our true position in a deep sea of longing for the same fantasy promised by our nostalgia. I must return to my first fiction of my own success, here, passports. A term meant to denote the intermingling of ideas and the dissolution of borders, an actualization of plurality. But no sooner does one enter into the dark belly of this monster does one discover its evil truth, its vicious perpetration of violence against our mother and her fruit. I remember when I decided to learn the craft of gastral satisfaction and seeing those men of passports indulging in the oral satisfaction of a cigarette against these brick walls. They appeared as real men who understood and realized my desires. I longed to lean against these walls and breathe in the dark air of handcrafted tobacco smokes. I could have never expected what lied beneath, the torturous chambers with their low ceilings and blistering heat from the ever-raging fires. I must leave here, and I dare not enter, even to save its mother, who's been locked in the basement by her abusive spouse over a decade, for I no longer can bear recollection. I must travel again, perhaps to a different time and place in mother's ever-present waters. Perhaps I can find again my faith and restore my fantasy somewhere else, where I can forget those walls, that fire, and mother. I hear music. Nina. Her voice crude, grainy, and rough, though only a weathered cover to her pure, ineffable vibrating tone. What is this place? It seems different than what I know. There are smiling women here. The air is cool, yet a fire burns along the back walls of the chamber. The smell. The smell in Nina's voice. I feel that comfort once again. This place might yet restore my faith. Nina, the goddess of this temple, built for taste. He professed his devotion to her. Here she is among the clamoring of steel and ceramic and the fire that sintered it. But wait! Nina! The mother of this temple, I know her. Something is wrong here. This man, his movements and words, his true grit as even he avowed, he is no different from those who would torture me for over 3 months. I know him from the quiet condemnation of his apprentice when my camera turned away. An actor, a facade. I should have known from the abused pans and the neglected stove, the way he dragged upon his cigarette. What love exists here is not what I've come for this place must have its dark side too, hidden behind beautifully constructed beet salads and Middle Eastern chops, the soft light, the rushing of water in the distance, Nina's voice. Even here our mother is simultaneously neglected and exploited. I must escape again. This time to my own home might I discover a way to undo my father's teaching. Yet, even in my own temple, constructed to the goddess for her love, I know not what evils I commit upon her, but I know that I abuse her. I must. If I didn't then, my labor would taste that of her fruit. Her purity brought by salt, I can see it on my face. That frustration taught to me by father, brought by that entitlement to mother's purity in tension with my own impotence. I consistently fail her here, but I know that it is not my fault. I know I wouldn't be that way if it weren't for him. Shaking off the residue of father is a harder task than I am prepared for. I feed my dog, in the hopes that my love for him will transform his canned food and kibble into his mother's fruit, that fruit he may never have had. I must make one more trip, one more voyage to a place I know well, a place that has welcomed me many times, that place which seems to have committed the act so many mothers stay awake at night hoping one day to commit, divorce from father. This place, and again, this smell, this time of morning, of coffee and starch, a place catering to those most empty, those who've just awoken from dreams. Here one must be careful, for one's nose is a most delicate organ at these hours. Yet here, mistakes are not failures. They add to that human ingredient she called love. The mother of this place, divorced from father's will, finds her freedom among the fresh scents of our mother's fruit, her garden, from whence comes life, the egg. Eggs, not God here, but an arbiter of life. A mere mortal is this temple's essence. Eggs, life, and starch, they are all synonymous. If conversations with the past have smashed my faith must have taken refuge here. Not here in space, but in time. I scramble to collect it, in order to face the day so quickly and menacingly approaching. With my faith restored, I am ready to turn back in time, to mother, to father. If mother cannot emancipate herself from father, then I will for her. I've returned for the last time. Why, father? Why did you leave us, mother and I, so many times? A question I've asked of you on many occasions. Now I have an answer. My answer, one of very few I've attained without your intervention. You left each time with a promise of your own nostalgia, our nostalgia, that promise of wealth you so viciously would pry loose from your mother's garden. You braved her salt for it, the salt that causes the rust, that salt that reveals the fallacy of your nostalgia in rust, the rust that gathers on those who follow your nostalgia's faith, that same rust that reveals the failure of your fantasy and in turn reinvigorates our nostalgia for your past riches. What riches, though? What riches did you ever return with when so many fathers never returned? Those fathers crushed by our mother's thighs out at sea, remembered only as unknown men. Now, somehow I never saw it, but now I see that you died long ago, and the nostalgia you left for us acts as a proxy for your continual existence here on earth. Here, I've found your grave, those symbols of your power and virility. What once appeared as immortal stallions reveal themselves to me as vulnerable husks, easily smashed by our mother's power. That power your ships often intimidated into retreat. Your weapons lie here, father, as something lost. What was lost and what was left, the city's ghost, your ghost, father, lies here, preserved in a thin, weak veil, wrapped in plastic, waiting for mother's salt to corrode it to dust.